Hey everyone, welcome back to the part 3 video of Private Key JWT Authentication series, and this is where things are going to get more exciting, fun and real. In part 1 and part 2, we did all the groundwork, creation of the keys, certificate, JWT configuration, getting the access token, and in this video we are going to use that access token to get the real data from the Okta. In case if you landed here without watching the part 1 and part 2, I'll strongly recommend you to go through them first. You can find the links to the videos in the description. Here is a scenario that we are going to implement in ServiceNow. A company uses ServiceNow as their HR platform. John is a finance team member who has recently resigned. The HR team raises an offboarding request for the John in ServiceNow. Now, instead of someone logging into Okta and manually deactivating or deprovisioning the John access, ServiceNow is going to automate this entire process. ServiceNow is going to do this in 2 steps. In step 1, it is going to trigger an API which will check whether John is a member of finance team and active or not. Once it is confirmed, ServiceNow is going to do a second API call which will deactivate or deprovision the John access in Okta. Everything is automated. No manual login required. So what are we waiting for? Let's configure. The first thing ServiceNow needs to do is go to Okta and ask, give me all the users in the finance team group. From that list, ServiceNow will check if John is there and if he is still active or not. For this, we use the Okta Groups API, which is /groups/groupId of the finance team /users. ServiceNow calls this API using the access token. Okta responds with all users in the finance team group. ServiceNow then goes through that response, finds John and checks his status. If he is active, we proceed to step 2. If he is already deprovisioned or not found in the group, the flow stops and logs accordingly. Let's go into ServiceNow and configure this. Let's go to REST messages. We already have the REST message that we created in the part 2 video of this series. Under the same REST message, let's click on new method, and the method would be get to fetch the finance team members from the Okta. Fetch the finance team members. Endpoint would be https your Okta domain. So I can get the Okta domain from the parent REST message that we created in the part 2 video, and /API/version1/groups, and this is a variable where the group ID, finance Okta group ID will go, that we will get it from the Okta. And for the authentication, we are going to use the same authentication that we configured in the parent REST message, that is Okta JWT Private Key Authentication. Let's go back to the HTTP method. Let's click on save and generate the variable which is the group ID of the finance team. For that, let's go to the Okta, go to the directory, under the groups, finance team. So this is the finance team group ID. Let's save it here and let's hit on test. So once we click on test, the ServiceNow should trigger a request to the Okta and get all the 4 users back to ServiceNow. So let's test that out. I can see there is an 403 status, and the error says you do not have permissions to perform the requested action. Let's debug. Let's check if the scopes are properly defined. Application registry. In the application registry, what Okta JWT access token, what is the scope that we defined? Okta.groups.read. We have the proper scopes defined in ServiceNow. Let's also cross check if that is properly defined in Okta as well. Let's go to our application and the scopes and granted. I can see the scope has been granted successfully. What about the admin roles? Uh, Now I understand why the issue has come. We have configured the scopes, but we haven't configured the RBAC rules. Now you may ask, like, what are RBAC rules, right? This could be understood with the bank locker. Like, to open a bank locker, to access the bank locker, there will be two keys. One key would be the client, one key would be with the bank. Without any one of the key, we cannot open the locker, right? So the key with the client will define that the client is authorized to access the locker, but the key with the bank will confirm that yes, the user is authorized to access the locker. In a similar way, these two, the scopes and the RBAC rules of Okta, will work like a two-layer security. The scopes will define that the client is authorized to perform an action or to access the resource, and the RBAC rules will confirm that yes, the client has access to the resource and can perform the action. So if you understood that, let's click on edit assignment, and based on your ServiceNow implementation, please assign the appropriate RBAC roles. For the demonstration purpose, I am going to give super administrator and click on save changes. So I can see the RBAC role has been assigned to the application. Let's go back to the ServiceNow and let's go to the REST message. Now we have to get the token, a fresh access token based on the new RBAC roles that we added. So click on get OAuth token, and now once we have the fresh OAuth token, let's go back to the HTTP method and now click on test. Perfect. I can see the status 200 and also the payloads. So let's copy this payload and format JSON. So the user that we are looking for is the John. So yes, I can see the John and status is active, and this is the John Okta ID. In real life ServiceNow implementation, here is where we put a logic or configure a flow where it processes this payload, fetches the user profile and gets the Okta ID and pass it to the next API call, which is the deactivation of the user John Snow. For the demonstration purpose, here we are doing it manually. Since it is confirmed that John is present in the finance team group and active, now ServiceNow triggers his deactivation. For this, we use the Okta users lifecycle API, which is /users/user ID of the John /lifecycle/deactivate. ServiceNow passes John's user ID, the one we captured manually from the previous API response. Okta receives this, immediately terminates all of John's active sessions, revokes all his tokens, removes his access to every application, and flips his status to deprovisioned. John can no longer log into any applications that is connected to Okta. Let's configure this in ServiceNow. Under the same REST message, let's create a new post HTTP method to deactivate the user John. The method will be post. Let's name it as deactivate the user profile. The endpoint would be HTTPS your Okta domain /API /version1 /users and the user ID variable user. This we will get from the previous payload that we received, lifecycle/deactivate. The authentication would be the same, the parent authentication, which is Private Key JWT Authentication. So once we hit on save, and let's auto generate the variables. Here we need to provide the user ID. So the user ID comes from the previous payload, the Jon Snow. The Okta ID would be this. Let's copy, save this, and once we click on test, the ServiceNow should go to the Okta with the user ID and deactivate the user profile. So what is the current status of the John in Okta? It says active. Let's refresh. It says active. Let's go back and see what happens now once we click on test. There we go. The status is 200, and let's go back to Okta and refresh, and the status says deactivated or deprovisioned. So now John has been offboarded from Okta, completely automated, triggered by a single HR request in ServiceNow. No manual steps, no one logging into Okta, no room for human error. That is the power of what we have built across these 3 videos. And that is all for this video and for the entire Private Key JWT Authentication series. If this series helped you, drop a like. That will genuinely help the channel reach to the more people. And if you want me to cover any specific topic, drop it in the comments. I will try to make it for you. Until then, bye bye.